So we'll give you an idea of what we've been doing this last 1 year, and fill you in with some details of the performance of the various schemes that we monitor and regulate. So, to start with, this year has been quite good in terms of the performance of the various schemes that we have, and in terms of the subscriber base, we have reached a level of 1,80,50,000 as on the 31st of October 2017. Now,
could you repeat it?
1,80,50,000 as on 31st of October 2017. And so we have seen a growth in the current year of about 26 lakhs 10,000. Now, this, when you compare it with the overall growth that we had in the whole of last year, which was about 32.28 lakhs. In the whole of last year, we had a growth of 32.28 lakhs. This year, we already had 26.1 lakh in the first 7 months of the current year. So it compares well. So in terms of percentage growth, last year we grew at about 26.43% in terms of the subscriber base. This year we are growing currently at about 29% on an annualized basis. And since a lot of the growth happens in the last 1 or 2 months of the year, we would expect the number to be even better than what we witnessed so far. So this is the overall state of the subscriber growth. Now, if you look at the various schemes that we run, which are the components of this overall growth, the best growth that we have seen has come in Atal Pension Yojana. The Atal Pension Yojana, we reached a level of, actually we crossed 70 lakhs, but as on 31st of October, it was 69 lakh 67,000. And in this year, in Atal Pension alone, we have seen a growth of 21.03 lakhs in just the first 7 months. Now again, when you compare it with the growth of 24.03 lakhs in the whole of last year, in 12 months of last year we did 24.03. In the first 7 months we've done 21.03 lakhs. So this is at the current level we are growing at about 74% on an annualized basis. This is actually a little lower than the percentage growth last year, but that's because of the base effect. The scheme is just about 2 years old.
All these figures you will give us in the statement.
Yeah, we'll give you the sheets, give you all the data. But I thought I'll just read out some of the things which are of significance and which are of interest here.
So, sir, you're saying that
Can we reserve the questions for a little later? I'll just.
I had a doubt on this. So you're saying the principal growth is coming out of APY.
In fact, I'm just coming to that. So out of the overall growth in the NPS, overall NPS that we have of 26.1 lakhs that I talked about earlier, 21 lakhs has come from Atal Pension Yojana. So Atal Pension Yojana accounts for 80% of the growth in the subscriber base this year. And going forward, we have an ambitious target for Atal Pension Yojana this year. And we would expect the numbers to be by the year end of a similar nature, with Atal Pension Yojana accounting for the bulk of the growth in the subscriber base that we have. Now, if you look at the other schemes, the NPS. Now, NPS overall, overall I give you the numbers, but the non-APY numbers. Non-APY numbers have also been good, but of course it doesn't compare too favorably with the APY numbers. Now, we have grown so far in the other schemes by about 5.07 lakhs in the first 7 months. And this is including government and the private sector scheme that we have, all citizens in the and on an annualized basis, we are going at more or less the same rates as last year, which would be about 18% or so, 17% or so. But the bulk of the growth, like I said, is coming from APY. Now, if you look at the amounts that we manage, it's a totally different story. As far as the amounts go, the asset under management that we currently have as on 31st of October were 2,11,982 crores. So we have seen a growth, and on 31st of March, the number was 1,74,560 crores. So we have seen a growth of 37,421 crores in the amount that we managed in the first 7 months of the year. Now this, when you compare it with the total growth that we had of 55,750 crores in the whole of last year, is, compares very favorably. We already done 37,421 crores overall, and on an annualized basis, we are growing at about 37% in terms of the amount that we are managing. So this again is a good number. And here the story is, see, in terms of the numbers, in terms of the subscriber base that we had. So if you all know that NPS started off with taking the government accounts on board. The central government employees were our first subscribers. And we didn't open it up for the non-government sector till 2009. So at that point of time, the government subscribers accounted for the bulk of our subscriber base. The story is very different now. The government subscribers now account for just about 30% of our subscriber base. The non-government subscribers now account for the bulk of the subscriber base. But the story is different in terms of the amounts. In terms of the amounts, the government sector still accounts for about 86% of the amount that we manage. And this is thanks to a lot of reasons, most notably the 7th pay commission, the successive pay hikes and the contributions which come on a very regular basis. Because unlike the other subscribers, here this is a mandatory scheme for government employees. All those who joined service from 1/1/2004 in the new central government, and most of the state governments have also adopted the same model. So for them it's mandatory, and month after month we keep getting the contributions. So that's why the amounts swell up. Whereas in the case of non-government, it's a purely voluntary scheme, and therefore the amounts are not as regular, and nor are they as voluminous as the government. So in terms of the amount that we manage, the government funds still account for the bulk of our funds. It's almost 86,000. So in terms of amounts, out of the total of 2,11,982 crores that I mentioned, 1,83,049 crores are of the government subscribers, which is roughly about 86% of the overall fund that we manage. Now, in the non-government area sphere, we have actually done quite well. Of course, there is the base effect. So, in terms of the non-government, like all citizens, the individual scheme, last year we grew by about 145% in terms of the amount that we managed. But again, that was on a low base. So, from a level of 1,272 crores in 2016, we reached 3,125 crores in the all citizens, which was a jump of 145%. Now this year, we have reached 4,234 from a level of 3,125 crores in March. So this is again, we are growing at about almost 60%, 65% or so. So the growth overall has been good, but it's particularly so in the case of, in terms of amount, the government subscriptions. In terms of numbers, the Atal Pension Yojana numbers, they predominate our performance. Now, coming to the other things that we'd like to mention, some of the new developments, and but before I come to that, in terms of the returns that these schemes have been giving. Now, if you take the last the 5 years data for the government schemes, because the government schemes have been running for a longer time. And the returns that the central government schemes have been earning, it's the central government funds are managed by 3 pension fund managers that we have, public sector pension fund managers, SBI, LIC and UTI. So the returns for the last 5 years have ranged from 10.16% to 10.52% among the 3. And for state government, the returns have varied from 10.16% to 10.31%. So this is the record for the last 5 years. In terms of the other scheme, the non-government scheme, the government, the equity and the corporate bond, there that we have the 3 years data. Now there in the government scheme, the returns have varied from a low of 8.89% to 12.51%. In the case of equities, the variation is larger as one would expect, ranging from 9.73% to 16.63%. In the case of corporate bonds, it's ranging from 9.78% to 11.63% in 3 years data. So our fund managers have been doing a good job, and then all these returns compare well with the benchmarks that we have set. And you can also do a comparison with the other scheme in the market and figure out the kind of returns. They compare fairly well. Another thing that I wanted to touch upon was this life cycle fund. Now the life cycle funds, we had only one to begin with, where it was the 50% scheme, maximum amount of 50% would be invested in equity, and then it would taper off. The amount in equity would taper off for a period of time as the person would. Now last year we introduced 2 more life cycle funds. One, an aggressive fund where a maximum of 75% was invested in equity, and a conservative fund where the maximum of only 25% would be invested in equity. Now these schemes have attracted a lot of attention, and you'll be happy to know that in our non-government subscribers, our non-government subscribers today account for about 11 lakh 70,000 or so. Out of that, almost 5 lakhs have opted for the life cycle funds, which means about almost 42-43% of our non-government subscribers have opted for the life cycle funds. And this aggressive fund that we had introduced about 5-6 months ago, that over a period of just 6 months, almost 44,000 people have joined the aggressive scheme. Whereas the conservative scheme has attracted a few people, about 9,025. Bulk, of course, is with the 50% scheme, because that's the older scheme, and we already had a lot of subscribers. So this is catching on, and life cycle funds are catching on. 42% is non-government subscribers, and we've offered this to the government subscribers as well. We proposed this that the government could also look at permitting this choice to government subscribers of investing in life cycle funds. So this I thought was something that you all should know. Now, among the other policy changes that we made recently, now we just a few days back we hiked the age of joining from 60 to 65 years. So anybody today can join NPS anybody between the ages of 18 to 65 can join the NPS. And with this we have done, with a view to allowing people who had missed the bus earlier in joining NPS to come on board. And also the fact that, people don't necessarily stop working at the age of 60. A lot of people continue to work, and with people living longer and all, a lot of people would continue doing something or the other. So for them also, a late starters could also run into the scheme. So that was the reason why we felt that we could think of increasing the age limit. And then there are this partial withdrawal. The partial withdrawal earlier, we said a person could withdraw his contribution only after 10 years, after being in the scheme for 10 years. But we got a feedback. We got a lot of feedback from the market saying that this 10-year restriction was very onerous, and a lot of people needed funds before that. So since we were parting with their own contribution, why not reduce the period? So we had a look at that, and we therefore agreed to reduce that period, the vesting period, before they could make a partial withdrawal from 10 years to 3 years. So that we have brought about recently. Then we also revised the fees that we pay to the points of presence. Again, this is only for the non-government schemes. And this was again based on the feedback that we were getting from our distributors, the points of presence, that the existing fee structure was proving to be too low and not much of an incentive to BOPs, because they do have to put in a lot of work to, being a voluntary scheme, and people don't just join like that. You have to talk to them and convince them that a lot of effort and a lot of resources were required to get people on board. So we saw merit in the proposal, and therefore we announced the hike about 10-15 days back. It's not a very big jump. The onboarding fee has been increased from 125 rupees to 200 rupees for customers. And then we will use another charge called the persistence fee, because we want people to continue in the system. See, when a person joins a pension scheme, he does it with the objective of getting pension when he retires, whenever he stops doing work. Now, he's not going to get much of a pension if he doesn't contribute, if he doesn't keep contributing. And to ensure that the banks are after them to see that they remain in the business, remain in the system and keep contributing, we came up with this idea of giving them a persistence fee, so that they would get the subscribers to be regular in the contribution and make periodic contributions from time to time. Again, this requires a lot of follow-up, because subscribers have to be told that they should contribute regularly. Then, specific to Atal Pension Yojana, there have been some developments that we thought we should talk about. Now, we've been in touch with several state governments to give some sort of an incentive to the citizens of their state to join Atal Pension Yojana. And we've been successful in persuading the Himachal Pradesh government to provide co-contribution to all the people in their state who join APY. And the Himachal Pradesh government has been quite generous. In fact, they have said that they will provide a co-contribution of 2,000 rupees to all the citizens. It's 2,000 per year. Yes. 2,000 per year to all the citizens who join the scheme. And we are likewise in touch with several other governments. Some governments have evinced interest in making similar kinds of co-contribution. So we are in touch with them also. And if more states come on board, this will be a big incentive for people to join Atal Pension Yojana. And we have on the 7th of this month, the day before yesterday, we launched. We are launching a series of state-specific Atal Pension Yojana campaigns. So we started off with UP. That's the biggest state, and we'll probably be running this campaign across some of the biggest states, at least 10 or 12 big states, in order to get as many people in the state to join Atal Pension Yojana. And these campaigns will be run for a week or 10 days at the most. And within that period, we are enjoining all the banks and the other post office which are located in a particular state to get as many accounts as possible. And we are incentivizing them by we have said that we will honor them and will recognize their contributions in these campaigns. So all the bank branches and post offices are being galvanized to participate in these state campaigns, and we feel that along with the other regular APY promotion that we do, the state-specific campaign will help us to reach out to the nooks and corners of each state, each of these major states, and get as many people to join Atal Pension Yojana as possible. So this is a new thing that we have started with Atal Pension Yojana. And as you all know, I mean, we have the government has also said that we'd like to see Atal Pension Yojana touch 1 crore by March, 31st of March. So all these initiatives that we are taking are all steps in that direction to see that we reach that figure of 1 crore by 31st of March. Then again, to facilitate the onboarding of customers in Atal Pension Yojana, we launched this e-APY, which is the electronic online version for Atal Pension Yojana. We already have an e-NPS, which is for the regular NPS. So for Atal Pension Yojana, we launched a similar e-APY. Now, five banks have already launched it, and we are telling all the banks to implement this e-APY. Now what this will do basically, it will take off all the workload from the bank. So because here, sitting in his house, a person can join, can fill up an APY application form. Then it will be an Aadhaar based facility. So if he has an Aadhaar, practically everybody has an Aadhaar. So based on that, he'll fill up the form online, and then the form will go automatically to the bank. It will get checked there, and then the account, the brand number will be issued and the account opened. So a lot of the work that the bank branches have to do currently, the customers coming to their office and then submitting a paper application, and then the bank staff scrutinizing the application, then finally feeding it into the APY system. So all this work will be saved, because this will be a totally online thing. The system will match it with the customer information on record in the bank, and then open the account where everything is in order. So this is something that we thought we would introduce, because that will save a lot of the time and effort and resources that the banks and the post offices have to place towards this. And if this works well, we are very hopeful that we'll be able to see a surge in the numbers, because this will be a kind of painless way of getting people to join APY. But of course, it has its limitations in the sense that since it's an online system, not everybody will be able to access it. And but those who are in a position to use these facilities will find it very, very convenient to do so. So this is another initiative that we got. I think it just started about 15-20 days back, so 2-3 weeks ago we started this. Then we keep making changes, in our processes and in the product features. Like this NPS application we had launched, and that has proved to be quite a good success. Almost about 6 lakh downloads have happened. So with this, a person can view his statement of transaction. He can view his holdings, like how much he's invested in, what kind of securities, and all that. Then he can make changes, like address changes. Then if he has a Tier 2 account, then he can contribute to Tier 2. Then he can lodge grievances also on the basis. So a number of facilities have been built into this app. And once they download that, it is much easier for them to avail of these benefits that NPS has. So these are some of the things that we have been making, and we are always on the lookout for ways and means of making NPS and Atal Pension Yojana as simple and as attractive a scheme for our subscribers. So this is an ongoing task, and then we keep getting feedback from the intermediaries, that we have various intermediaries from the market as well. And if we see merit in any suggestion or proposal, we try and make the changes here so as to facilitate our subscribers. So I'll stop here, and I'll be happy to take your questions.
So as you said that APY is forms a bulk of the subscriber base in that. So it means that your main focus will be on doing APY, then it will be given preference over other schemes, or what?
No, it's not that we are giving more importance to APY at the expense of the other schemes. But it's the nature of the demographics actually. If you look at India today, the bulk of the workforce is in the unorganized sector. Almost 85% of the workforce is in the unorganized sector. The unorganized sector doesn't have any of these facilities, no pension, nothing. And many of them don't even have insurance and things like that. So this is a huge mass of customers who don't have any such facility. And therefore, it's not surprising at all that so many people should be joining Atal Pension Yojana, because they don't have any such facilities. Whereas if you look at the formal sector, to which actually the NPS really, it's not that it's restricted to the formal sector. I mean, the informal sector also a lot of people do join NPS. But given the nature of the market today, and given the fact that the APY is a product which is tailored to the low income segment, because the contribution levels have been kept very, very low, and the benefit also, the maximum of 5,000 rupees pension to a person at the age of 60. So given all these features of the product, it naturally appeals to people in the lower income segment. And since they form the bulk of the population, the numbers definitely would go up much more in APYs than in the other scheme. But it's not that we are de-emphasizing NPS at the expense of, for promoting APY. It's not that.
So what is the, you gave us numbers on the AUM growth. So I just wanted to understand what is driving this AUM growth this year, and are you confident that the AUM growth is going to surpass the growth of last year?
Yeah, what is driving AUM growth is the fact that our subscriber base is going up every day. And in the case of, I mentioned that the bulk of the AUM growth is coming from the government sector. And the government sector accounts for 86% of the AUM. And that sector grows at a much faster pace than the other in terms of the AUM.
So can you give us a number there, sir? Government sector growth.
Government sector growth. See, the growth last year, I'll give you last year's growth first. In the case of central government, the amount under management grew by 39.28%.
Okay.
And in the case of state government, it grew by 47.69%.
Okay.
Now this year, up to October, 31st October, the central government sector grew by 17.78%. So if you annualize this, it will be around what, 30 to 33% or so,
Okay.
on a much bigger base. And in state government, current year up to October has grown by 22.57%. So again, if you extrapolate this and annualize it, it will be around 40-41% on a much bigger base.
Okay.
So, and what drives it is the fact that this is a mandatory scheme for the state and the central government employees. So every month regularly contributions keep coming, and with all the pay hikes and and the periodic increases that they have, the numbers only go up. So we are quite hopeful that these numbers will continue to grow as they have been growing in the past.
Have you heard anything from the finance ministry on broad-basing the fund managers for the government?
No, we have not heard. In fact, we have been pushing them very hard for taking a view on this, but we have not heard so far.
And what happens to the non-government AUM? How much is it now? The corporate?
Non-government overall is about 32,000 crores. 32,000 crores, of which the corporate would be about almost 18,800 crores.
They're showing the same growth levels? Or?
See, last year corporate grew by about 61%. This year, up to October, it grew by 25.72. But typically here, in corporates and all citizens, the increase largely comes towards the year end, because most of them are taxpayers and all that. So they start putting in a lot of the money in the last 2 or 3 months of the year. So from January onward, you'll see a surge in the numbers here, including a surge in the amounts. So, I mean, on an annualized basis, currently we are growing at what, 45% in the case of corporates. But this should increase, because like I said, the year-end effect will be felt.
So if the government approves life cycle funds, will there be altered those funds for government sector funds? I mean 75%, 25%?
No, we won't alter them. What we have said is that we have, the impact of this will be that probably a little more funds will go towards equity, to the equity market. Currently, as you know, in the case of the government sector, the amount that can be invested in equity is just 15% of the overall portfolio. Now here, even in a conservative life cycle fund, the minimum amount will be 25%. If somebody chooses the aggressive one, it can go up as high as 75%. And in the middle scheme that we have is 50%. So all these 3 schemes are more than the current government scheme. So the net result will be that there will be an increase in the investments being made in equity.
So currently within the 15%, the life cycle is not an option for them?
No, it's not.
So what is an option within 15? There is no option at all.
And sir, your your returns that you talked about, 11%, 10% return, how do they compare with other schemes like EPFO given their tax advantage and the fact that this is NAV and that is given?
Yeah. Yeah, those are, those administered interest rates. No? Currently it's what, about 8.6%. 8.65%. So,
For PF.
for PF, yeah. And whereas ours is, I give you some numbers.
10.3%.
Yeah, it's about, it's ranging from 10.16 to 10.52. So in terms of the sheer returns, it's much more. It's at least
How confident are you in sustaining such return?
That is what we've been talking to the government about, because we do need to, because now with the interest rates going down, the return that we would get on debt instruments would come down, would obviously come down with the overall decline in the interest rate. And therefore we do need to look at instruments like the life cycle fund in order to more broad base your investments and thereby have a better return. So we do need to restructure it.
This 10.16 to 10.52 must be the average, no?
Yes. No, this is between the three fund managers that we have for the government funds.
No,
So we have three: LIC, SBI, and UTI. So 10.16 to 10.52 is the return that they have earned.
No, I mean to say that now the equity markets are
Moving.
much.
So how are the private funds?
Do you have any data this financial year?
Yeah, we have.
So if you could elaborate how have the private fund managers perform?
Private fund, I see this data that I had given, this 3 years data for say corporate bonds, equity and government securities, they also relate to the private sector fund. So there, like I mentioned, 3 years, and it's ranging from, say in the case of equities, the variation is from 9.73% to 16.63%. And in the last 1 year, the returns on equities have been very, very good. But correspondingly, the returns on the debt instruments has been lower than in the previous, because the interest rates have been declining.
Yeah, you mentioned about the return on equity schemes. Now, for the last 1 year, as on ending September 2017, the one year return on SBI pension fund was 12.77%, LIC 12.34%, UTI 13.64%, ICS
UTI how much?
UTI 13.64%, ICSA Prudential 12.53%, Reliance 13.68%, Kotak 13.28%, and HDFC 16.30%. Actually, the returns are very susceptible to the terminal values, the starting period and the end period. So this is the last 1 year return, so for them it is same, in the sense that the starting and end period, the comparison is between 29 September 17 over September 2016. But since inception, if you see since inception, these schemes started like for LIC they started in July 2013 and HDFC started in August 2013. Others started in May 2009. Okay? And since inception, the equity returns are for SBI 9.73%, LIC 13.42%, UTI 11.77%, ICICI 11.73%, Reliance 10.95%, Kotak 10.97%, and HDFC 16.63%.
HDFC how much?
16.63% since inception. They started in August 2013.
And there, how much was it, HDFC, in 1 year?
And 16.30. Last 1 year, 16.30. Since inception, 16.63. So, our returns have been fairly good as compared to the competing retirement product in the market. Like, similar things should be compared similarly. We are a pension fund, long-term investor, old age income security. people have compromised their current consumption in order to get old age income security. It cannot be compared with mutual fund, where there is discretionary saving. People who have surplus money are looking for parking slot to put that money. So, they can go anywhere. People put in hedge funds also. But like sometime I have been seeing that where financial press is comparing us with the mutual funds, with hedge funds, with highly equity oriented funds.
So, sir,
I think that is not good.
in your view, what is the best comparison for an NPS, right? What is the best product I should compare NPS against?
See, we had asked.
What are the corresponding retirement product is there in the market?
No, we've actually created a synthetic benchmark with the help of CRISIL for evaluating the performance of the various schemes. And they had come up with this. They had created a synthetic benchmark which more or less conforms to the kind of portfolio that we have in each of these categories. So, for example, in the case of for corporate bonds, they've created a synthetic benchmark which over the last 3 years, the benchmark earned a return of 11.74%. And if you compare it with the scheme return, different schemes, there's one scheme which has earned 12.01%, that is the ICICI. There's one scheme which has earned 11.72%, which is Kotak's. One scheme which has earned 11.61%. So, so this comparison, the benchmark is a fairly reliable indicator of, how much these funds should be really earning in terms of the risk and return that they carry. Similarly, for equity, for example, equity last say 3 years benchmark was 8.93%, and again the returns like HDFC has the best return there in the last 3 years, 9.59%, and followed by Kotak 9.44, UTI 9.26. So like that it ranges. So we have so we do keep comparing the performance of these fund managers vis-a-vis the benchmark and evaluate the performance.
There are pension funds overseas, but FDI hasn't come in pension sector. It is 49%.
No, we have not seen any newcomers there. But some of our sponsors, like they have foreign holdings, so indirect. But nothing after the announcement of increasing it to 48%. Nothing after.
No, but that has to be seen. One is the foreign pension fund investing in Indian market, so they come as foreign institutional investor, get registered with SEBI and buy the slips through the stock exchange. Another one is like even after increasing the.
No, I think he's talking about the FDI.
Yeah.
FDI.
So they are like in pension sector earlier it was 26%, now 49%. So in that context, like putting money in the asset management company, as such they did not find very attractive when they can put money directly in the slips. Like if they put in some pension fund, and then that pension fund being an Indian pension fund raises money locally and invests locally. This is what exactly our legal framework for pension fund. Our pension fund, which are registered with us, mobilize money locally and invest locally. They cannot invest in overseas securities. There is no international diversification allowed for pension fund in India. So the foreign pension fund, if it puts money in Indian pension fund, asset management company, it is of no use. So what they are doing is they are registering as foreign institutional investor with SEBI and investing directly in securities. That way, a lot of money is.
So earlier PFRDA, you were thinking of bringing a status paper or a discussion paper on FDA, right? If I'm right. Some time back, there was a thought process to formulate
a discussion paper because the policy got changed when the Insurance Act got changed because the FDI in pension is linked to the FDI in the insurance. So when the FDI limit got raised to 49% in the insurance sector, it automatically got hiked here in the pension sector. But what is actually currently under discussion with the government is the modality of computing this 49%. So there is a view in the government that, indirect and direct, and various interpretation that they have given, which is actually holding up the announcement of this policy, and which is actually affecting some of our fund managers also. So we had not said we come out with a discussion. What we said is we are under discussion with the government. There is really no need for a discussion here because the policy is laid down by the government, and what we need is some clarity on the method of computing this 49%. If we are waiting for the law.
So, what is the thorny issue here? Is it how, whether in computing 49 only direct investment should be factored, or even the top level investments also should be factored?
Yeah, those are the areas of discussion.
Like the way the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, when it used to administer foreign investment, they said that these sectoral limits
Yes.
would include all investment, whether it is through direct investment or portfolio investment. So they included that. And then like it is possible that in some cases, for an Indian company, there might be an Indian sponsor where there is already some foreign investment.
Correct.
Okay. So then that we have some pension funds whose sponsors are some banks where there is foreign investment, some Indian insurance company where there is foreign investment. So like their investment plus some foreign investment put together, in some cases it may go beyond 49%. In the insurance sector, they have given certain exemptions. Like if a bank is putting money in an insurance company, and even if the bank has some foreign investment, so as long as that is an Indian bank, so it would not count for foreign investment limit of that 49%. So we have also been asking for similar treatment.
Making the structure more attractive is now dependent on the government and not the regulator, right?
Yeah, it will depend to a very great deal on the government, because it's in fact the current structure is practically enshrined in the Act itself. We need to have this. These are the various players, the participants in the pension sector, and their roles and responsibilities are also fairly well defined. So if one were to make a change in the structure, current structure, then one would have to look at changing a whole lot of laws and regulations.
So what kind of campaign are you running? You said the campaign to popularize APY in states.
In UP.
UP and other
UP
states.
to begin with, yeah, we've launched, perhaps Mr. Das will explain.
How many more states?
We'll do at least 8 or 10 states, big ones.
Yeah, we're planning to do at least 12
states,
states, 12 big states like UP, Bihar, Maharashtra, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, all these states. We just started in UP.
See, in UP alone, there are some almost 17,000 bank branches, post offices that work here. 17,000 of them. I mean, this is the number that we have for the whole country. But UP alone has 70,000 outlets. And we want each one of them to contribute towards APY. At least get a few accounts, each one of them. So that's the whole idea, to push every bank branch, every post office in a state to contribute towards getting APY accounts. Right? So the focus will be on all the distribution points in the state and getting them to participate.
And what about the returns on APY schemes?
Returns of APY scheme, well, APY investments are on par with the central government investments. So they would mirror the central government returns.
AUM wise, how much does it?
AUM wise, Atal Pension Yojana is now about
29,000.
2,970 crores.
About 3,000. And the returns are about 11.5%. It has completed 2.5 years. Returns are about 11.5%.
So what are going to be the priorities for the PFRDA in the next, say, 6 months? Besides the APY campaign?
Besides the APY campaign, we are trying to push the individual schemes. We are trying to push the corporate schemes. Corporate, again, this has been a good year. I think this year 547 new companies have joined NPS. And we now have almost close to 4,000 companies which have joined NPS. And one enabler that has been put in place is the government announcement last year that they would allow companies having superannuation funds to switch over to NPS without having to pay tax on the transfer. So that has eased the way of companies having superannuation funds to come over to NPS. Some companies have started doing that, but currently for each company to switch from superannuation to NPS requires an approval from the income tax authorities, because they have set up these trusts which have been given income tax exemption by the income tax authority. So what we had taken it up with the CBDT that now that the government has made this announcement that the transfer from superannuation to NPS will not attract any tax, then they should issue a general directive to all the superannuation fund. They can, that if they do this, they need not come to CBDT on a case-to-case basis for clearance. Through a circular or through a general directive, they could allow superannuation funds to switch over to, but they have not done that. We've been talking to them, we've reminded them also several times. So as it stands now, each company wishing to transfer its superannuation fund to NPS has to go to the CBDT office and get a clearance. So it's taking a bit of time, but it's happening, and some companies, like I said, have already started, have already moved to NPS.
So the department is indeed giving the clearance.
Department is giving the clearance, but again on a case-to-case basis.
So companies have to shift, it can't be done on individual.
No, individuals also can do. In fact, most of the people who have come are individuals who have.
They also have to seek permission of.
No, individuals would have. Companies, but if the companies come, then we get much larger numbers and.
Coordination conferences for companies.
That we keep for pushing, promoting the corporate growth. We have tied up with FICCI, and we've held already about 8 to 10, 12 conferences all across the country in different centers. So all FICCI members are invited to this conference, and we talk to them about the NPS and how it will benefit them if they join NPS. So we've had about a dozen meetings so far in many places, 12 cities. Some more are planned. So like that, we're trying to reach out to the corporate sector and get their advice to join NPS. And it is bearing good results. Almost 4,000 companies have joined.
How many CPSEs have joined NPS?
CPSEs?
Yeah.
Well, CPS, do we have the number? CPSEs?
Central Commission.
Yeah. In fact, we held a conference for them last month, and we invited all of them to come on board. So again, this is the same issue with them. They also have to take the approval of the income tax authorities before they can switch over. So this is the hurdle in the way. But
so will you also write for CPSEs for income tax?
we already written to them.
In case of CPSE, the basic issue was like some of them do not have pension. They might be having superannuation funds, and then they have an internal guidelines which say that they can have a pension scheme provided somebody is superannuating from the CPSE and we have put in a minimum of 15 years service in the CPSE. So very recently,
that was done away.
The government has done away with this condition of superannuating from CPSE and having a minimum of 15 years service in the CPSE. So in that context, we were very keen that now that it has been done away with, CPSE should join the NPS. And there were a lot of CPSE which are already in correspondence with us that we will be very keen. So instead of handling on one-to-one basis, we thought why not have a conference. We invited the department also.
So they are coming on board.
They are coming, but
They're coming, but again, the pace is a little slow.
Yeah.
It's like,
Then just to supplement what Chairman said, what is our objective about? Our objective is to expand the voluntary sector of the NPS. And we would like that everybody in this country should have one NPS account because it is a necessity. Like old age income security is a necessity, unlike mutual fund. Mutual fund is a discretionary saving. When you have something surplus, you park money. And it is like roti, kapda, makan, health, education, and both income security. So everybody should. I mean, then there also, like, if there is some, normally people say that because NPS one gets stuck for
20 years.
20 years, 25 years, and if somebody needs the money, what to do? So like, it provides for voluntary, partial withdrawal. It provides for premature exit also. But we would like that people should not do premature exit, they should also have a tier 2 account. So tier 2 account gives the flexibility to invest and withdraw. And we have been in talk with the government that tier 2 account, there is some tax clarity on tier 2 account.
Need for clarity.
Need for clarity on tier 2 account. So, like right now, some people are getting it, like only the capital appreciation is taxed. Whereas some people say that no, it has to be taxed the entire amount, whatever is put in the tax.
Yeah, but as far as the formal government stand is concerned, it attracts tax currently. So we've sought the government clarity. We said that it should be treated on par with the mutual funds.
So this clarity is only for tier 2 or even tier 1?
No, tier 1 we've always been saying that you treat it on par with EPF and all, make it a triple E scheme like those schemes.
But
so there of course that request stands with the government. But in respect of tier 2 also, we have said that you treat it on par with the mutual fund and give it the same tax benefit that mutual funds are given, so that it becomes an attractive product for pensioners to put aside.
But in tier 1, the whole amount is taxed or?
Only 20%.
Huh? No, only appreciation or the whole amount?
No, appreciation is not taxed. See, it's an EET, that means your contribution is not taxed.
Yeah.
So whatever you earn, that is your returns, that is not taxed. Only the end amount, the terminal.
so
The
tier 2
maturity, on maturity, the entire 40% will be taxed of the fund.
20%.
No, see, it's like this. At maturity, 40% has to be mandatorily annuitized. Okay. The amount that you put in annuity is not taxed at that stage.
60% is
60% is taxable, but there the government reduced that amount which is actually taxable to just 20%. So just 20% of the corpus is actually taxable now. So it's like a semi triple E scheme.
But how does it work for tier 2 then?
Tier 2, since there is no clarity and the whole thing is taxed.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, whole thing is taxed.
But and on that whole thing, because for tier 2 contribution, one doesn't get any tax deduction. So because it is tax paid income which is going for tier 2. So there is no point to pay tax on the contribution. Like every year I'm contributing to tier 2. And that contribution is my tax paid income. I have already paid tax on it. So when the lump sum amount comes, at the time of say after 3 or 4 years I may take it out. So it should be taxed only on capital appreciation, not on the entire principal. Are you getting my point? So this is what we have been asking. This is what people have, some of the people who file the returns, they have claimed it and they have got it. However, there is no clarity about it and we have talked to the department that please give this clarity, otherwise this is creating confusion.
40% of the amount that go to annuity, but annuity doesn't give much returns.
See, again, there also, one has to see that annuity, when annuity is given, it is given for life. Life of the subscriber, sometimes life of the spouse also, and then return of purchase price. Now say, if I retire at 60, and the probability is that I will live up to 85, and then my wife for another 10 years, 5-year age difference, 5-year difference in the life expectancy of women is higher than men. Okay, normally it is about 4 to 5 years more for women, they live longer than the men. And age difference is like they are younger to men. So 10 years. So from 60 to 85 to 95, so for 35 years, the insurance company is committing to a rate of return which you are comparing with a short-term product. So today, if they are offering a rate of return of say 7.5%, that 7.5% they will give for throughout 35 years. Whereas, if you compare that 7.5% to other product in the market. Could be the senior citizen scheme, could be some insurance scheme where it is 8%.
For 10 years.
For 10 years. So after 10 years, it will be reinvested and that investment may take place at 5%.
See, this is the attraction of an annuity. The reason why annuity is stipulated is that, irrespective of the number of years a person lives after retirement, he'll continue to get a steady stream of income. Whereas that may not happen if he buys some other product. Like if you put the money in, say, mutual fund or a fixed deposit or something, the return itself will be variable in the case of mutual fund, and then he's not sure of getting the money right till the day he passes on. So that is the attraction of an annuity, and that's why it's many countries still have that. Some countries have done away with annuity, a mandatory requirement of annuity. Some countries have retained it. So there are different views on that.
But is it required in India?
Yeah,
India
as
is required.
yes, as of now, under our act, at least 40% has to be annuitized. That is pension.
No,
That-
under the law, too, it's there. I'm saying, it, does economic fundamentals of the country require that compulsoriness of?
No, he's asking that since you don't have a thriving annuity market, is it fair to mandate annuity, right? See, the
Yeah, the mandation
annuity
of
market has not grown, right? Indian annuity market is quite
Yeah,
something like the corporate bond market.
that's true. It has not grown as much as, but the underlying forces driving annuity in the case of the pension sector is basically this, that we would like people to have an income throughout their life, which may not happen if they were to invest in other assets. So otherwise after 15-20 years the fellow may find that we run out of cash.
Exactly.
And then that it could be very difficult, because the older you get, the less is your ability to earn anything. So at the age of say 80, if you run out of cash, then you would be in dire straits. So to avoid that kind of situation, some investment in annuity, that's why it's been kept at 40%. I mean, it can be 100%, but the minimum that you have to invest in annuity is 40%.
So are you looking to recommend a higher annuity because the
No, no.
longevity of Indian people?
No, higher annuity is possible even now. A person can put 100% of his retirement purpose in
No,
annuity.
mandatory.
No, mandatory is 40%.
So you're not looking to revise
No,
it?
in fact, we have been looking at other options too, like systematic withdrawal. Because there are a lot of people out there who feel that they have the wherewithal to see them through their life, and they would like to earn a higher return and all that. So they would rather invest this amount in something, some other product.
Sir, you also spoke about 10 years to 3 years, right, withdrawal.
Partial
Can you
withdrawal.
elaborate? Has that been notified?
Yeah, it's been notified.
Okay.
No, so what was happening was that we allow partial withdrawals from a person's NPS account for a certain specified reason. Like say if he's fallen ill, or marriage of his children, or building a house and all that. So for certain specified reasons we allow partial withdrawal. And partial withdrawal is restricted to 25% of a person's own contribution. And there also earlier we had made it conditional on him remaining in the system, remaining in the scheme for 10 years. Now this was proving to be a bit of a burden for a lot of people, because they said, if you have to wait for 10 years and all that, the event of a contingency arising, what are we to do? So then we looked at it, and then we felt that since we are going to allow only a partial withdrawal of his own person's own contribution, we felt we could lower this period restriction from 10 years to 2 years.
So it applies even to tier 2.
Tier 2 he can withdraw anytime. There is no
It's
restriction.
like an open.
It's an open.
So when was this notified, sir? 10 years to 3
Very
years?
well, I think August or something, no?
September.
Huh?
September.
September.
Along with the age limit, is it?
No, it was separately. This was not
Separate,
separately.
Age is reserved.
Have you got any feedback for the 65 players?
Well, it's too early, but most people have welcomed it. And because it was based on feedback actually. It was based on feedback. You're getting that a lot of people were interested in joining at a later age. I think generally favorable.
People are
And the
living
media
long.
also has been very kind to us. Most of the reports have been favorable.
People are living longer, they are, working for more period, beyond 60
Chances are
also.
they will surely exhaust their cash. If they live longer, right?
And with people living longer, there's a possibility.
So you will have some analysis already done, right? The way interest rates are moving down, how much of it is going to impact accumulation? Right? If we are on an interest rate down cycle, then the returns are going to get affected. And if returns are going to get affected, the attractiveness of the NPS product will get hurt.
But these are market movements, okay? So it's not as if the rest of the market is immune to these changes. If it drops here, it will drop everywhere. So it's something which moves in tandem with the rest of the market. So if interest rates drop, it affects everybody. The banks have already dropped the fixed deposit rate to what, 6% and all that, 6.5% and all that. So it affects everybody. But
So what percentage of this 2,18,000 crore goes to the market? I mean the equity market.
about 13%,
14.
14%.
And to the debt, say?
On aggregate basis.
Debt is, the rest of it is debt means including government securities and the corporate debt.